Emma, thank you so much for being here today. How you doing after your big Wodapalooza victory?
Yeah, no, really good. All recovered now this week from the travel and back into training today for the first day.
Going into Wodapalooza, what were your expectations?
I knew I was capable of a podium for sure. We had a really good block of training. We changed a few things, and yeah, everything was going really well. So I did my hopes were on a podium, definitely.
And you mentioned a good block of training. As far as managing the season, and we've seen a handful of big name events in the off season now with this new system. Were you specifically preparing to try and perform well at Waterpalooza? Was there maybe a mini peak involved, or were you still more focused on the season, that's upcoming for the CrossFit Games?
Yes, we're still focused on the season, the upcoming season. I got COVID straight after the games, so I didn't feel like I performed that well at Rogue. So I said to my coach straight after Rogue, because I got married the week before Dubai, so I was like, that's why that was out for me. So I was like, let's try and get a really good block of training leading into Wodapalooza, kind of see where we're at, and then kind of what's the building block based off that. I just didn't want to leave things at Rogue the way they were, because I just feel like I really underperformed. So yeah, that's kind of, we just did wasn't like a peak, it was more like a deload week kind of thing leading in. But we did push CrossFit for kind of 2 weeks leading into Waterpalooza, versus I would only really touch CrossFit maybe like once a week on a Saturday doing WOD. So we definitely did touch it for a full 2 weeks leading in, which was good.
What did you try and accomplish at Wodapalooza? What did you learn there? Because I know athletes usually use that as sort of a tune-up for the game season. What did you learn?
For me, the biggest thing was just confidence. I probably wouldn't be a very confident athlete. So it was just trying to perform in each event, and not be afraid to kind of just go out hot and see if you can hold on. I just would typically be that athlete that always comes through just at the end. I know I did in a few events, still do that, and I'm trying to get better at going out a wee bit harder. But it was definitely just, for me, it's just overall confidence, just knowing that I actually can still finish strong in workouts and I'm not going to die.
Well, obviously, Emma, before the little interruption, I want to say congratulations on the wedding. That's awesome. Nice little way to ring in, I guess, a new year and a new season. But you mentioned, the approach to particular events. Obviously you had the win in the Bayside Chipper, but what out of the slate of events at Wodapalooza did you particularly have circled, I could use some improvement and need to focus my approach here?
Yeah, so for me it was I was quite disappointed on the 2 squat events, so the overhead squat and the thruster workout. I just kind of feel I didn't put in a good performance. I kind of rolled my ankle in the first on actually the second pig flip, obviously, of the first workout, and I wasn't actually able to squat. So I had to wear my lifters and stuff for the overhead squat workout, because I couldn't get range backstage. And obviously the thruster workout, I couldn't squat onto my left ankle. So I definitely just feel I didn't perform in either of those workouts. But we've chatted with my coach and stuff, and we've put in quite a lot of overhead work and on the thrusters and on the overhead squats. So it's not really something we're too worried about or going to have to go away and go back to the drawing board. It was one of those workouts. We dealt with the situation and we did our best we could, but it just wasn't a good performance on my part.
So let me get you this straight. You rolled your ankle in the very first event and still went on to win.
Yeah. So my left ankle was black and my Achilles was black. So I kept using the scooter to get to and from the venue. So probably people thought I was lazy, but I was trying not to walk on it. And I just went back and forth to ice it between events.
If you're not familiar with Wodapalooza, there are the little Lime rentable scooters, the electric scooters everywhere. So to everyone listening, if you saw Emma on it, it's not because she was being late. That's phenomenal. I mean, just here, obviously winning Wodapalooza, in a solid field is impressive, but to do so to bounce back from, an injury in the first event and still be able to hold on. I mean, that's tremendous. Do you feel like that's a big part of the weekend for you, that mental strength to be able to not let something like that deter you?
Yeah, like without a doubt, like in years past, like I would have just been like, oh, I'm injured, that's me, sure, I'll just do what I can do. Let's not focus on anything. But this year, like I just took it as a challenge. I was like, right, this could happen at the games. Like anything can happen. You can get injured at semi-finals. The morning of it, you could trip on a curb. So I was like, right, we have to go here and just put in the best performance possible. And I tried not to get any treatments as well over the weekend. So I got like no body work because again, I just used it as like a challenge to just see how my body perform with no treatments. All I did was ice my ankle throughout the weekend. And I was just like, I was really happy to be able to kind of go through those two like wee mental barriers just for the what ifs, or what if COVID happened again, your coach can't travel with you or your physiotherapist can't travel. So I just know going into this season, no matter what happens, if it's just me, I'm ready for it.
So now that you're heading into the game season, you have a little bit of intelligence from Wodapalooza. What do you focus your training on here in the coming weeks?
Yeah, so we kind of just started back today. We're just obviously continuing to play the long game, the conditionings, obviously endurance based. We're kind of stripping back like all ollie lifting, kind of back to the basics again for 2-3 weeks, just kind of focus on moving well, a wee bit more overhead stability work, more core work, and then loads of strict gymnastics again. And then I think we're kind of going to do like a 3-4 week like rebuild block, and then start to just obviously build up as the season builds up, and just with the goal obviously to be ready to go for semi-finals, and obviously the main peak is going to be for the games.
And you have managed to improve every year at the games, and I'm curious too, what do you owe the biggest factors, or what are the biggest factors in your mind in being able to have that steady continuous improvement every time you show up on the biggest stage?
I just think like each year, you learn a wee bit more about yourself. 2019, like the first year there, like I was petrified. So like to even just be 20th was incredible, because I couldn't say in one workout I actually performed well, because I was just so afraid of the cuts. Like you were just constantly waiting. Then obviously 2020, I was at home. One of those things to get better or to even be there was obviously just an experience. But this year, like I really felt like there was a few workouts, like I really performed. There's a few workouts, there was big holes in my game. So for me, it's just the takeaways is I need more endurance work. I'm not good at like single modality things. I'm far better at CrossFit, which again, it showed at Miami. I'm good at CrossFit events, but I'm not good at single modality. So for us, we're continuing just to work on the endurance work on my swimming, work on my running, and stuff like that there. So it's just like a steady progression each year.
You mentioned kind of being petrified the first time that you were at the games. What was the moment for you when you said, hey, you know what, I actually belong here?
I probably didn't. It probably wasn't until I don't think it was really until like this year I felt like 2021 games that I actually felt I belonged there. Even doing the online qualifiers in 2020, like I was like, I'm just so far out of my depth here. I don't feel like I'm just a number. I'm not competing against these girls. I'm just filling in the spaces. Where at the 2021 games, I was like, right, I'm actually here. I'm ready to compete, and I started just to feel more like myself.
I'm curious about the experience level, being at the games physically, because we talk a lot about what experience does for an athlete. And I feel like a lot of times that means something different. Your first appearance at the games came, after some changes in the system. And then going back in 2021, I feel like was the first season where you were able to qualify in under what felt like a traditional format compared to what, the game season was like when you started back in 2014. So I'm curious if that qualification last year meant anything different relative to years past.
Obviously, like I would have loved it to have been in person. But it definitely felt more real, especially like how it was laid out. And obviously knowing, well, we kind of didn't really know where we were. Like, I knew I was in a good position going into the final day. But obviously you didn't know that, like, whenever I watched back the behind the scenes, like, I actually jumped into first place on the second to last workout. We were just like, flip. If I probably had knew that on the day, it wouldn't have changed anything. But no, it was unbelievable to obviously qualify kind of like the hard way. I just think you feel like you've earned your position. Where the years previous being like the national champ, I definitely don't feel like I earned that position. So yeah, it was nice, and I think that was a confidence as well, because Europe is so hard. So if you're able to win or qualify out of Europe, you're going to do well at the games.
What's it like now having a season that you're starting where it is actually the same thing, essentially structure wise, that you did one prior year? So now it's 2 years in a row, it's the same structure.
Oh, it's so good. I think, like, just mentally as well, because no one really knew last year, how the Open and how the quarterfinals was all going to roll. So now just knowing like the pressure is completely off in the Open. You just literally have to do the workout on a Friday, make sure it's recorded properly, and obviously all the standards are met. But there's no pressure. It doesn't mean anything. And then the quarterfinals, like, I did all the workouts in one day last year, just for fun, and still qualified fifth, because I said to my coach, it was like, it's 60 athletes. Let's just crack them out on Saturday. We'll take 3 days off afterwards, and that's the job done. And that's what we did. So I was like, hopefully that's the exact same this year. We can just make it a challenge, do all the WODs back to back one day, qualify, go away for 3 days with David, and then start to focus for the rest of the season. So it's just nice. You have a wee bit more peace of mind.
Yeah. I'm looking at your results calendar, and like you said that you finished fifth right as I saw that, realizing you did all of them in one day. I mean, just saying that, I was able to do all of the quarterfinal workouts in one day, still finish fifth and qualify in a high enough position. I mean, relative to where you started, what is it like even being able to do that? Like, I mean, I imagine you feel like a completely different athlete than when you started, but do you even marvel a little bit at what you've been able to build just in such a short period of time?
Oh yeah, it is awesome. Like, I even just remember like starting to train with Sam Briggs in 2016 and seeing the amount of training she was able to do, and I was like, I'm never ever getting to this stage in my career. This is incredible. And obviously now to be able to do the same amount of training and potentially like a wee bit more now. Like, I never thought even in 2016 or 17 or even 18 that would have been possible. So it is great.
And you mentioned, training with Sam Briggs, in the virtual semifinals this last year, you were able to do the workouts along. You did them side by side. There's some awesome video of you guys throwing down together. Starting to train with her back in 2016, what did it mean to you to be able to not only throw down with her, as a peer now, but also get to qualify for the games alongside of her last year?
Yeah, it was awesome. Obviously, at the time, whenever I qualified, Briggs was in the sixth position. So at the time, she actually didn't qualify. So it was actually a wee bit, it was crap, because we didn't really find out until she was on the flight home to America, because it was 24 hours. So I was like, I was like, we didn't even get to celebrate together. But no, it was still really good. Like, she was so supportive and happy for me on that weekend. But yeah.
What makes her so, I don't know if unique is the word, but everyone knows that she's such an incredible athlete, and you've gotten to work closely with her and probably get to know her a little bit, but what makes her so incredible at what she does?
She's just so disciplined. Like, for my first met her, if I didn't meet her, I definitely wouldn't be the athlete I am today. Because whenever she used to stay at my house way back in 2016, she goes to bed at the same time. She eats breakfast every morning at the same time. she is so regimented with her day, and that forced me to become regimented. And like, I'm still in that same path. It's like no later in bed than 10 o'clock. She doesn't go any to bed any later than half past 9. She makes sure every single day, like, nutrition is perfect. She doesn't eat bad, like, any of the time, really. So I just think, like, just her discipline is a testament to where she is now.
I have a little bit of a question about how you got started in CrossFit. You know, we've done some research, and I think you have a pretty fascinating story as well. But for people at home that may not be familiar, what was your kind of athletic background, if you will, that ultimately led you into CrossFit and how you got started?
Yeah, so I used to race quad bikes. So I think in America they call them ATVs.
Mm-hmm.
I used to race that from I was 6 years old until I was 24. And I still, people might think I'm full of rubbish, but quad racing is still harder than CrossFit.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. I need to hear more. I need to hear more about this. Go ahead.
Like, I did a race in September just after the games, and I recovering from COVID, and I was sore for 2 full weeks. Like, I couldn't physically do the last race. I did 5 out of the 6 races over the weekend, and I couldn't physically hold on for the last race.
oh my gosh.
All right. So why now is quad racing harder than CrossFit?
It's so physically demanding. Like, you're racing, you do 3 20-minute races in a day. And my first race back was a 2-day event. So it was meant to be 6 20-minute races, but I was only fit to do 5. Like, my forearms, try and think about doing that Atlantic where your arms at the games, like the 300 push-ups, everything. Like, it's basically that muscular fatigue 3 times in one day.
And I'm kind of curious, do you still put in the same amount of time on your quad? Obviously, I assume that it's probably, you don't put in the same amount of time on the bike, but when you were kind of getting into CrossFit, did you notice any carryover as far as the mutual benefit between the two?
Yeah, so like, I would have trained like 4 or 5 times a week for the quad racing. So would have been more like, obviously, circuit style, like just your push-ups, burpees, squats, kind of like just functional fitness without kipping. So obviously I was really fit before I started CrossFit just through the quad racing. So it definitely had a carryover, because then it was like, right, I just had to learn all the skills. So I was never a skillful person. I just had to work really hard to get the skills, but I definitely had like a baseline fitness.
You mentioned you started at 6.
Yeah,
How do you get into riding a highly powered motorized vehicle at 6 years old?
I don't know. Maybe my parents hated me.
Did they get you into it, or was it something they said, "Hey, that looks cool, put me on that"?
Yeah, I think, like, so I got an electric quad bike whenever I was 2 years old, and like, I don't think my dad could keep batteries to it, so he was like, right, let's get you an engine, and at least you can keep putting petrol in it. And I think, yeah, I just was addicted to them and would never get off it.
Oh man. And just to dig into the backstory a little bit, because I've read up some stuff, and I think it's a fascinating story as well. Fitness and the meaning of functional fitness means a ton to different people, but you and your husband David have a particularly unique story as far as what that means for each other, because you met during quad racing, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So we obviously met. We met way before we started dating. So we were together now 13 years. So we both raced quad bikes together. Then I obviously started to train him for the quad racing, because he could not last a race. He's one of the fastest quad racers in Europe, but he wasn't enduring. So I started actually training him for the racing, and then he literally became unstoppable. And then he had an accident in 2012. So that kind of put me out of the love for for quad racing, and kind of steered me towards CrossFit. He ended up getting paralyzed. So whenever he couldn't race, I just kind of fell out of love of it. We were over actually in San Diego. he was getting physio for just like to try and rehab and trying to get back to as normal life as he could. So I was over there helping with that. And then whenever I wasn't helping, I was in the gym training myself, just on the whim that I might go back to quad racing. Mm-hmm. And I actually just stumbled across CrossFit, and it was more like a Globo gym, and asked could I join in, and basically the rest was history then. I didn't really find it for about maybe 9 to 12 months after we got home, but once I found it, that was me hooked.
Athletes are such type A personalities where it's, everything is under your control. As you see a problem, you're able to fix it. But what was it like for you to have to watch a loved one go through that process, and there was really nothing you can do other than just be supportive?
Yeah, I was kind of like, I kind of took the tough role, because his mom and dad are like very soft people, so they kind of would kill you with kindness. So I was kind of like the tough love, and I think that really stood by us, even now, because he's so independent and there's nothing he can't do. He was at Wodapalooza, there at the weekend. He was everywhere and anywhere that he could be, he was there. So I kind of just took the approach, right? Shit's happened. Let's crack on. And as soon as I could, I stole him out of hospital a few times. We kind of got shouted at for that. So as soon as I was like, do you think you can get in a car? He was like, yeah. I was like, let's go for a spin. So it ended up anytime I came into the hospital, we were on watch then, because I kept stealing him. So it's kind of definitely like tough love. I just kind of didn't let him feel sorry for himself, or I didn't really show a huge amount of emotion at the start because I didn't think he needed it. His parents gave him enough of kind of the softness. So I think it's been good because like I just class David as David without his legs working. He can do absolutely everything about the house. He made me my full gym, my outdoor rig. He did that in nearly 48 hours. He made so like he's a perfect handyman. He can still do everything he could do before. So I think someone has to be the bad guy. No, they do.
I'm kind of curious because I do, having that kind of type of trauma in your relationship and then getting through the other side, there's a great deal of enrichment that can lie on the other side for you guys. Do you feel that now, being, separated from the accident and seeing what your life looks like now, getting married and all of those things? Is there some sense of enrichment that you've been able to find as a result?
Yeah, like I just think like sometimes like people think things are the end of the world, and then you're just like, mate, wise up. Like your pair of shoes didn't arrive on time. Like seriously, have a reality check there. So you definitely like there's so much bad things that happen in life, and I think whenever you come through something as like traumatic as what we did, the wee things just don't matter anymore.
Oh man, it's so distilled and so like succinct, but it makes so much sense. And I think you're right. We lose sight of that a lot of the times, given with everything that's, constantly swirling around us, that we, forget the few things that are truly important for sure.
Let's focus on this season. And again, I apologize for the noise here, but what are your goals now as you focus on the 2022 CrossFit Games season?
So goals remain the same. Like every year, I just want to do better, and I just want to continue on the path that I've set for myself. Is just keep progressing within the sport and see what my body's physically capable of. So I'll definitely be going to the games aiming to do better than I did last year.
And looking at that, because you finished 12th last year, and I thought you finished really strong on a high note. For the last 5 events, you're in the top 10. But when you kind of comb through that performance and you look back and you're like, oh, okay, here's a spot where I can get better. Here's a spot where I can better. What are the few events or maybe types of events that stood out in 2021 that you think, all right, this is what I'm hammering this year?
Yeah, so Obviously, like the running to the bar workout was a poor performance for me, and obviously the swim workout was a poor performance. I think they were my two worst finishes. So we have absolutely been hammering running, and I think that showed at Wodapalooza when I got out of the water in a terrible position and gained a good 10 to 12 spots on the run. So I was really happy with that. The swimming's a work in progress. I'm working with the local triathlon club, and I'm also swimming extra sessions by myself. It's not the swim that's the problem, it's the fear of open water is the issue. So the fact that each time I'm getting into the water, I'm settling myself a little bit quicker every time, and I just believe that's just going to take a wee bit more time and a wee bit more confidence. Not being able to get into the open water in Ireland until June is it's not really ideal. The pool isn't the problem for me. It's being in that open water. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm working on it. It's hard, but I'm still working on it.
Yeah, and I imagine I was going to say I'm sure the open water in Ireland isn't the most inviting, or you probably don't have a ton of opportunities to get out there, until things start to clear up or warm up a bit, particularly outside of the wintertime. But I'm curious, you mentioned the kind of the fear of the open water and being able to settle yourself. I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people, and that Sean and I, we're in California. We grew up near the ocean. I think we kind of take that for granted for a lot of people that don't have access to open water in that regard. I'm curious, is there any sort of like mental training or any sort of mental process that you go through that you've implemented to try and calm yourself and get a better sense of control when you're out there?
Yeah, like about maybe I think it was 2019, before 2019 games. I got into the water, open water, to swim with the guys and had a complete panic attack and had to get out. So for me to actually be able to complete the mile swim at the 2021 games was the biggest win ever. The goal for me was just set off it behind and was just to finish the swim. And that was the only goal. And we did that. This year at Waterpalooza, we set a new goal, was to try and push the swim. Let's see what could happen. As soon as I get in, my body was just like, nope, not happening. Let's just survive the swim. So each time, like, my coach is just setting me a goal of, right, let's just try. Yeah, like, I know I'm strong enough swimmer. I know I'm not going to die now. But again, I think with each experience, it is getting better. So hopefully by the time the games comes around this year, I will have 2 or 3, maybe 4 triathlons under my belt, and I'll be a lot more prepared.
Wow, that's great. You talked about Europe and competing over there and how loaded it is. And when you first got into the sport, I'm sure you knew of some of the names. Who are the athletes that you kind of looked up to when you started your career, who now you're maybe competing against?
Yeah, so obviously, like Sam Briggs, in 2013, I was just kind of finding CrossFit within Ireland. So obviously for me to be training alongside her is incredible. I remember watching Kristen Holt at 2014. I think it was Battle of London. I think that was kind of her breakthrough year. She won at that year. And then 2015, I actually got to compete at the Battle of London with Sarah. She won it. Even Carmen Bosman, Thuri Helgadottir, all those girls were there. So all those names were definitely like, wow, you were just starstruck at that time. So it is really nice to be like in the same level as them now.
And as far as like your region of the world, because you mentioned a lot of the European female athletes, but one thing that hasn't been really ever present in the sport, at least until recently, and since you've come on the scene, is the Irish presence at the games. We've seen a handful of male athletes break through. We've gotten to see, was it Mickey Smith, Sam Stewart, PD Savage? They just competed at Wodapalooza too. But you have really been the flag bearer for that portion of the world. So what does it mean to you to be able to go there and kind of put an Irish stamp on the international competition at the games that has seen other women from other parts of Europe as well? Yeah,
it's awesome. Like, I remember saying to my partner to David. I was like, see if Sam Briggs can do it, I can do it. If a UK girl can do it, an Irish girl can do it. So I just think like with hard work, you genuinely can. And I think, Sam is very like me. We just work hard, and the results just, did come as testament of just hard work. So yeah, I think it's just good as you're just setting an example for the rest of the guys coming up through. Like we've got Lucy, she came second at the games this year in the teenage division, and like she's probably snatching more than me at the minute. So like the teenagers coming through are just incredible. So I would just like to just keep paving that path for the younger generation coming through, just to know like if you just keep working hard, like anything's possible.
One of my favorite things to see at the games is when kids come up to the athletes and you can see how genuinely happy they are to meet you and get the autographs or the picture or whatever. And I'm sure you've experienced that, whether it's at the games or in Ireland. What is that like for you to have, you mentioned the upcoming generation, but to have people who not only view you as someone they want to be like on the competition floor and in the gym, but also someone they just want to be like, period.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like I always just wanted to be like everyone else, and now whenever people come up to me, I'm like, why do you want to be like me? I want to be like them. Yeah, it still is pretty weird, like, but it is cool.
When you look ahead to this season, and you mentioned that you want to keep getting better, but I know we haven't even done an open workout. But when this is all said and done, what needs to have happened for you in 2022 for you to be like, okay, that was successful, that was progress, and that is absolutely something I can build on now moving forward?
I don't know. For me, it's probably just being better than I was last year. If I still have the same weaknesses and the same workouts that I did last year, well then I haven't put in enough work. So for me, like the biggest improvements I want to see is in my running, is in my swimming. I definitely can do a lot better in the lifting events. So I'm excited just to get my old barbell game back that I used to have in 2015, 2016. So yeah, there's definitely a few things we're trying to get back that I used to be good at, and a few things we're trying to get better that I'm just not good enough at. And
then the final question for me is, both you and Pat Vellner, as the winners of Wodapalooza, you got yourselves a nice check. Do you have any plans for that prize money? Anything special, or is that being socked away someplace?
No, I actually do, because we got planning permission for a new training facility. So I'm building a new gym. So we have the money to build it, but we didn't have the money to kit it out. So now we're going to get it fully kitted out.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, Emma, listen, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on your recent marriage. Congratulations on winning Wodapalooza, and best of luck moving forward in 2022. I know we will be probably talking about you quite a bit.
Thank you.